Hello and welcome to Adventist Mission. Today we're looking at community service and we'll be taking you to the heart of Pittsburgh and Washington DC, and we'll see inner city ministries in action. Some years ago, the Seventh-day Adventist Church used a slogan, "The Caring Church." It's a great slogan for a church, but really it's not a title you give yourself. It's something that you have to earn. And by showing genuine concern for people around us, we prove how valuable they are to Jesus and to us. Today's surveys tell us that fewer than 1/3 of church members are involved in their communities. That's fewer than 3 out of 10 church members who are involved in their communities in any way. One of the 7 key parts of the Tell the World initiative, the church's strategic plan to reach out to every person on this planet, is to increase the involvement of church members in their communities. I mean, how can we ever hope to share the love of Jesus if we stay separate and distant from our communities? On today's program, we'll be meeting Andrew Clark. He's a young pastor with a passion for community involvement. And Andrew is working in one of North America's biggest mission fields, the city of Pittsburgh. But first up, I'd like you to meet Sung Kwon, and he's the director for Adventist Community Services right here in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Sung Kwon, thank you for joining us today. Now, you have a passion for community service, and you are the National Executive Director of Adventist Community Services for the North American Division. A big division, many communities, and we're at one here down in the outer suburbs of Washington, D.C. This Community Services Center here, where does that serve?
This is in Sligo, Langley Park, Maryland. And we serve communities in by and large, predominantly Hispanic congregations and the population in this community.
Now, this is one center. How many do we have throughout North America?
We have about 1,200.
1,200?
Yes.
That's wonderful. Now, in one perspective it is, but then you think of how many churches there are. We have more than 5,000, right?
Yes, we do.
Now, I would imagine that every Seventh-day Adventist church should be a community center in some form.
I believe the mission of the church is outreach. It is not an activity or programs, but it is our duty and the responsibility as Christian.
You have a passion for ministry to the community. What motivates that passion?
Because love of God and His people. And God dealt with each individual as a whole person, which means physically, socially, mentally, and spiritually. So when we are interested in person as a God's creature and sons and daughters of God, you really have to deal with the whole person. You cannot just focus on spiritual aspects of a well-being, but you have to understand the whole person and the holistic approach. And that was the reason for this commitment.
Now, we look here, for example, we see racks of clothing here behind us. What will happen with this clothing?
It will be distributed to individuals who are disfranchised from the community, marginalized population of our society.
But we're in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. Isn't this a rich place where everybody is well off with nice homes and plenty to eat?
Well, Mother Teresa once said there was a Calcutta everywhere. In the midst of the Chicago, New York, Washington, D.C., where people are, there are people struggling physically, socially, mentally, and spiritually.
Now, it's easy for us who perhaps live at a middle-class level to be blind to the needs of people. We can drive through a community and not see that there are people in need. It seems to me that Jesus would have a particular attitude if he came to our communities today. What do you think would be his approach?
Well, definitely. As you study how Jesus ministered to the people, he basically mingled with the people and identified their needs and met those needs. And then he built a bridge, the trust relationship between the church and the community. And through that trust relationship, he said, follow me. I have a friend of mine who is a Jewish rabbi, and he once said to me, son, you as a Christian, you have a truth. But the challenge is you have not earned the right to share the truth. We have a truth, beautiful truth that we have, but we have not earned the privilege and right to share the truth because we have not invested in people in the community. We have not invested our time and effort to listen to their cries. And when we think about the urban ministry, metropolitan ministry, we often think about buildings, infrastructures, but often forgetting about people in the city.
Yeah, wonderful.
Right.
Thank you for your ministry and what you're doing here in North
You're
America.
welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us, where we continue to talk about mission. Our special guest today is Elder Andrew Clark, and welcome to our program.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I know that you're very involved in a ministry in Pittsburgh, and with that probably is creative in some circles. Some look at that and they go, well, it's not really typical evangelism. It's not this, it's not that. What are you doing?
In a nutshell, all we're doing is following Ellen White's advice on page 143 of the Ministry of Healing, where we've entered a completely unentered community just south of Pittsburgh, and we're simply following Christ's method of evangelism.
Which is?
Which is to mingle with people, sympathize with them, find out what their needs are, meet those needs, win their confidence, and bid them to follow Jesus, to follow in Jesus' ministry and do what he did. And Ellen White goes on to say that this method cannot and will not go without fruit, and we've seen that.
Okay, now when you talk about coming out and knowing what the needs are in the community, this type of thing, that has to find an expression.
Absolutely.
It can't just be a theory and something we have on paper. How are you expressing that?
Well, we were very fortunate in our entry path into Pittsburgh. In 2004, there was a hurricane. Hurricane Ivan came through Pittsburgh,
okay.
And there's a lot of devastation. There was actually a movement from the local conferences and the Columbia Union to meet the needs in the community after the flood.
Okay.
But typically a disaster response is a few months, whereas the Pennsylvania Conference saw this as an entering opportunity to remain in the community.
Okay, so what did you start?
Well, I actually was hired on January of 2005, and it was my job to transfer a typical disaster response of goods collection and distribution into an Adventist community services for the region. And from there, we continue to look into what the further needs of the communities are. And
what did you find?
Well, we found that one of the things that the community really needed is they were appreciative for all the work that we've had done with homeowners, but they saw that on their main street it was still devastated and businesses hadn't come back. So we actually built a cafe which wraps around our human service center, so we're meeting a public need as well as a business need at the same time. And then as we continued God's method of finding out what the needs are and meeting them, we found a lot of teenagers that were hanging out in our cafe, and we've built a truly dynamic teen outreach. Most of our teens are 16 to 19 years old, and over half of them have never set foot in a church before.
Okay, I mean, like, does a cafe have any, a program or stand? What is the connection with them and trying to communicate? You may say some type of a philosophy. Does the cafe have a philosophy?
Our cafe is simply to be to help people be conscious and aware of their local community, and to be involved in their local community.
Okay.
And as we get these teens and other guests involved in their community and meeting needs of the community, we start having questions of, this is great, I've never experienced this before, why are we doing this? Which opens up the doors to our theological philosophies.
Yeah, some of the fellowship that you would like to involve them in.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Now, have you done anything besides the cafe?
Well, we have started our own church plant. It's called Pulse. It's People United by Love to Serve and Empower. It's a Seventh-day Adventist church.
Repeat that again.
Pulse. People United by Love, capital Love being God, to serve and empower. The idea of bringing people together, the glue being God, and the purpose to serve and empower our local community. And that service and empowerment comes from God to be able to not only share the Word of God, but the legs and arms of God as well.
Okay, and so basically you have this fellowship, basically what you've brought together.
Absolutely.
And that operates the cafe. or at least
it meets in the cafe on
it
Saturdays.
meets in the cafe. Okay. Now, are you involved in anything else in the community?
Absolutely. The group of youth that we talked about that started hanging out in the cafe, they are now moved to a second story inside of our building, and they've named that the upper room, where we have 30 to 40 at-risk youth meeting every Friday evening. And
now, when you talk about at-risk, I always like to kind of stop and have you define your terms as we go along. What do you talk about when you say at-risk youth?
Well, let me define it with a short story.
All right.
We had about 30 youth in our cafe, and we were just hanging out, talking to them, getting to know their needs, befriending them. And one of our local police officers ran in and said, "Is everything okay? Is everything okay?" And we said, "Sure, everything's okay. Why?" And he said, "Well, because I've arrested most of these kids' parents and half of these kids. I figured there was something wrong in here." And when he realized that these kids can behave, it affected his life as well as ours when we realized that's the type of kids that we're working with.
Elder Clark, we're going to be right back after this break. Stay with us.
Now here's the main entrance in through Jane Street off of 279, and we're passing by the Second Baptist Church. There was another church now that's been pulled down, which is a parking lot. Then we have the St. Peter's Ukrainian Orthodox. Then we have Ukrainian Church Hall and School, which used to be a different church. The AME Zion Church. Then we have the Russian Orthodox Church. And then right after that, the next street here, we have Holy Souls Catholic Church. People in the community were asking for some place where they can go and relax and not feel like they're just part of a rotating schedule of people coming in.
We make efforts to really genuinely get to know our customers and everybody who comes in, to say hi to them, to greet them.
I remember the first 3 kids that came in. When I saw them, I just thought, oh great, this place is going to go downhill. They came in, they had some cookies and some drinks that they bought at the dollar store, and they came in and they said, you know, we can't afford to buy anything here, but we just want to use your space to eat lunch. Can we? And I thought, fine. And they said, can we put a movie in? And I said, no. Finish your food and get out. And then I just really felt God impressing me and saying, you know, this is my ministry, not yours. What if I want to reach these kids? And started hanging out with them. And one of the kids heard one of my staff call me Pastor Clark. And he said, well, why did she call you pastor? I said, because I'm a pastor. And he said, well, where's your church? And I said, you're sitting at my church's bar. And they said, oh, if this is a church, I'm coming back every day and I'm bringing my friends. And sure enough, they did. The next day we had 5 kids. The next day we had 8 kids. And it's just been growing and growing and growing. And one day we just took them through a tour of the whole building, showed them everything that we're doing in the community, showed them why. They asked why we were doing it. We told them a little bit about our faith, what drives us. And then we ended the tour upstairs and we said, what if we gave you this space? And they just got really excited. They've named this space the upper room. The obvious spiritual implementations has been explained to them since, and they think it's even cooler that there's this radical social reformer that came to the Middle East to try to really shake things up and let people know that the world is all about peace and not war, and it's not about hate and it's not about segregation, it's about love and peace. That the local government killed this person, and then a bunch of his followers got together in the upper room and said, why was this person killed? And they radically transformed the world from that upper room. And the kids see themselves as these disciplined nonconformists that want to change their world.
You guys, you can get red chairs and bring them in to sit down and watch, or regular chairs, or you can just stand like that.
I don't get kids wandering in off of the street to find out about God here. You know, they go down to the Conscious Cafe and they find out about God there.
We have certain rules that we expect you guys to follow when you come in here, and please don't break them. Number 1 is no negativity. Number 2, respect each other. Number 3, respect yourself. Inside voices, no cursing. That is really important. Please watch your language.
So they started self-governing each other. and telling each other these are the rules. But since they come up with the rules, they abide by them. And it's just amazing to see what happens when you give kids a little bit of hope, a little bit of inspiration, and a lot of trust.
Like someone was going to use it.
We see with our kids as we work with them that God has truly led them to us. And the confidence is won, the needs are met. We've been mingling for a long time, and we're excited about bidding them to follow Jesus. It's amazing to me how God can be in our lives, and we don't realize it as we go through from day to day to day. My drug habits got to over $500 a day before they started getting bad. I ended up homeless, I stole, I hurt people, I put a lot of people in pain. I ruined entire communities, and there's nothing I could do to fix that. I felt like I tried everything in my life to fill this void that I didn't know what it was. And all of a sudden, I had all these religious people coming at me saying, "Have you ever tried religion?" And I thought, well, I've tried everything else in my life, let's try that. So I started chasing down religion. And it was amazing. All of a sudden, the drugs go away, the drinking goes away, the smoking goes away, the girls go away, and I'm a great Christian now. And I start looking at all my friends I was hanging out with, and I was telling them how to act, I was telling them what to do, I was telling them how to be better people. And I realized I was just hurting them and pushing them away. Hurt all the people that I love the most. Because I was nothing more than a religious addict. I am inspired by your vision for this place. A place that's safe and a place that's fun. Nothing more, nothing less. A place that has opportunities to find out what does faith mean to me? What does faith mean to you? Opportunities to help the community around us. That gives us a self-worth and a self-value to be able to go on in life, past all the mistakes and stupid things that we've done. And we have applications tonight. If anybody's interested, this organization that's being created, we would like to see majority youth ramp to have a fun, safe place, opportunities for faith, and opportunities to help your community. Is anyone interested in being part of that? What would you do to make a fun, safe upper room? The same thing I've been doing since the first time I came to this place. Go to meetings, write letters, shop for food, raise money, basically whatever it takes. I'll make Andy proud. As a leader of the upper room, how would you provide opportunities to be involved in the community? I would love to help clean up places, help elderly, spend time with young kids, and just liven up Carnegie. As a leader of the upper room, would you provide opportunities to explore faith? What activities do you see? I've never really been involved with church and God, so I would like to try.
I've learned some moral standings and, learn some real values in life, just trying to be a good person for a change and make a difference in the city.
They see me in almost all aspects of my life, at work, with Andy, with my friends, and I hope that I have the opportunity to show them how all of that is a balance, that when you have a relationship with God, it involves aspects of community, of service, of friends, of family, that it's a life-changing event.
Christ's method alone will bring true success in reaching people. First, the Savior mingled with people as one that desired their good. He sympathized with them. He met their needs, won their confidence, and then bid them follow me.
Welcome back from the break, and we are still talking with Elder Andrew Clark. and of a very exciting ministry taking place in Pittsburgh right now. Just reviewing what we've covered, you have a ministry that actually kind of began in a cafe.
It actually started as a disaster response.
Yeah, but I meant you eventually formed this cafe.
Yes.
Yeah, and then from that you formed a fellowship.
Yes.
And then the youth of that group formed what they called an upper room.
Yes.
Okay, and these function now to service the community in which you live. Now, just review a little bit the philosophy that drives this.
Basically, our philosophy is that together we want to be the difference that we want to see in our communities. And when we say together, we mean not only us but our community. We realize that the community is the entire recipe, where we're meant to be the salt. And that's really our philosophy.
Are you touching people's lives?
Every day. It's really exciting.
Tell me about it.
Well, a couple stories I can think of. Number one, we had some kids come into the cafe a few weeks ago, and they were sitting at the tabletop area, and we were making them some fruit smoothies, and they said, "Oh, this is so great. How long have you guys been here?" And we were talking to them, and then some of their other friends came in, and they said, "Hi, Pastor Clark, how are you doing?" After I had been talking to these youth said, "You're a pastor? You can't be a pastor. You seem like fun." Yeah. And I said, "Well, I am a pastor." And they said, "Where's your church?" And I said, "Well, you're sitting inside our church right now." And they said, "If this is church, we're coming back every day and we're bringing our friends."
Okay,
And,
well, that's terrific.
They have been. They've been coming back, and they've been
Now,
part
how
of
many
the
are in
upper
the
room.
group?
We have about 30 to 40 that show up on a given Friday night, but
Okay.
usually 5 or 6 any day. And whenever we have meetings, at least 15 to 20 show up.
Okay, that's very good. Okay, and other people you've touched?
Well, I can think of one gentleman towards the beginning of the disaster relief that was volunteering with us and working with us, and there was a local VBS at one of our local churches in Pittsburgh, and they were doing a VBS where they told the kids about Jesus all week long, and on the very last day, Jesus comes in and they get to meet Jesus. And this gentleman that was volunteering with us had been incarcerated, but he felt like he had a new lease on life. And we actually asked him, "Would you be willing to be Jesus?" So he was Jesus for that day and just walked in the room, and all the kids said, "Yay," they got to meet Jesus, and then walked out. And he said that he felt like his life was totally changed. And he's shown that it has. Since then, he's gone back to college. He's now working on a master's degree and working with AmeriCorps, getting other young kids off the street and involved in their communities. But what's interesting about that story is we asked him to go to one of our Adventist fellowships.
Oh, yeah.
And he went, and he said it was one of the most amazing times he ever had, but he thinks he needs to find another church. And we said, "Why?" And he said, "Because you guys talked about the love of Jesus, and that's wonderful, but I need to know where I'm going if I'm bad." And I didn't hear enough about hell. But we told him, when you're ready for the love of Jesus, you know where to come. And he said, "I'm sure I'll be back soon."
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, that's very, very exciting. Now, yeah, anytime you're going into a new area and you're trying to find people who are going to be part of your fellowship, you will run into all kinds of interesting stories.
Absolutely.
Changed lives, people who, yes, they've, and I know I oftentimes will tell some stories and I'll go, "Wow, you have those kind of people in your fellowship?" And well, again, coming back to the ministry of Christ, who did he fellowship? Who did they say he ran around with? Well, it was the people who I think had a sense that they really were desperate and looking for hope in somewhere.
One of the things that's exciting to me is when you see the people coming to our church, the other non-Adventist churches in the region actually support us financially and with volunteers, because they see that we're reaching the unreached. We're not reaching people that currently go to other churches.
How can people who are watching this program, who are church members, get started with this kind of program?
There is a methodology. There's actually a book out called Understanding Your Community, and as you go through that book, you actually come up with an assessment of your community to find out what its needs are. Many times our churches tend to find a program and give it to the community rather than finding out what the needs are and meeting that particular
Someone who
need.
wants to learn more about the ministry you're involved in, what's the website?
They can go to www.adventistcommunityservices.org.
All right. And now I'm going to ask you to repeat that one more time, because they now have their pencil in their hand. Go ahead.
Okay. www.adventistcommunityservices.org.
Okay. Just a final question in the seconds we have left. How does it make you feel to see people connect with Jesus?
It makes my life make sense.
Elder Clark, I want to thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you.
I keep thinking of the example of Jesus. He came down and he lived among us. He mingled with us. He became one with us. And he modeled exactly what he wants us to be: light, salt, mingling in the community to share his love. Please pray for our church's involvement in community outreach. Pray for church leaders. Pray for your fellow church members, and pray that God will help you to find a special niche to be involved in your local community. Thank you so much for your continuing interest and support for Adventist Mission. To find out more about the mission of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, you can visit our website at www.adventistmission.org. There you'll find mission stories, mission blogs, photos, videos, and much, much more. You can even give your mission offerings online or donate to specific global mission projects to reach the unreached with hope. Or if you're in North America, you can call us at 1-800-648-5824. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Gary Krause for Adventist Mission, and I hope you can join us next time on Adventist Mission.